Why does it suddenly feel like narcissism is everywhere? On TikTok, YouTube, and even in casual conversations, people are labeling behavior as narcissistic. But is narcissism really rising? Or are we simply seeing it more clearly in the digital age? This question has confused many, and in this video, we'll uncover the truth that psychologists say most people miss. Stay until the end, because the answer is not what you think. Psychologists explain that the internet acts like a magnifying glass. Behaviors that used to stay hidden in private circles are now broadcast online for millions to see. That exaggerates the sense that narcissism is spreading rapidly. In reality, these traits may have always been around, just less visible. Social media gives narcissistic behavior a stage, and the audience is all of us. One reason narcissism feels so common is the culture of performance. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube reward attention-grabbing behavior. The more dramatic, flashy, or extreme the content, the more it spreads. Psychologists say this doesn't necessarily create narcissists, but it amplifies traits like vanity, self-promotion, and manipulation. The spotlight makes what was once hidden appear larger than life. But here's where the illusion grows stronger. Algorithms love narcissism. Content that triggers strong reactions, jealousy, anger, or admiration gets promoted more. A narcissist thrives on attention, and algorithms reward exactly that. This feedback loop convinces us that narcissism is everywhere, when in fact, it's just being given the loudest microphone in the room. Have you ever scrolled through your feed and thought, why is everyone showing off? That's not coincidence. Psychologists explain that humans are wired to notice behaviors that feel threatening or unusual. So when someone exaggerates, manipulates, or seeks endless validation, it stands out. The internet magnifies that, making it feel like the whole world is filled with narcissists, even if most people aren't. Another factor is language itself. A decade ago, terms like gaslighting, toxic, and narcissist were rare outside psychology. Today they are everywhere in pop culture. While this gives survivors powerful words to describe their pain, it also means behaviors that used to be seen as selfish or controlling are now labeled narcissistic. The rise in language makes it feel like narcissism is rising too. Psychologists warn that this can be a double-edged sword. On one hand, survivors of abuse now have clarity and validation. On the other, overuse of the term narcissist can blur the line between genuine NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, and everyday human flaws. This confusion feeds the impression that narcissism is everywhere, even when it might not be. But let's be clear, narcissistic abuse is very real. Online communities have given survivors a space to share their stories, often for the first time. These stories travel fast, sparking recognition in others who went through similar experiences. The result is a tidal wave of voices that make narcissism feel unavoidable. But this is less about a sudden epidemic, and more about truth finally being spoken. Think of it like this. Narcissism didn't suddenly appear. It was always there in families, workplaces, and relationships. But now we have the language and technology to recognize it. When thousands of survivors post their stories online, it creates the impression of explosion. What we're seeing is not just more narcissists, but more awareness of how destructive their behavior can be. The shocking truth, psychologists say, is that social media both exposes and enables narcissism. It reveals patterns survivors once kept silent about, but it also gives narcissists new tools, fake personas, endless attention, and easy ways to manipulate. That's why narcissism feels everywhere online. It's a blend of more awareness, amplified behavior, and technology that rewards the very traits survivors are trying to escape. Another reason narcissism feels so present online is comparison culture. Social media platforms thrive on highlight reels, showing the best moments, perfect images, and carefully curated lives. Psychologists explain that this constant comparison encourages narcissistic traits like envy and self-promotion, even in people who aren't narcissists. Over time, the line between performance and reality blurs, making it harder to tell who is authentic. This culture of comparison doesn't just feed narcissists, it also exhausts everyone else. Seeing endless displays of perfection can trigger self-doubt, anxiety, and feelings of inadequacy. Psychologists note that this cycle benefits narcissists because while others are drained by comparison, narcissists feed off it. They see envy and attention as proof of their superiority, which reinforces their behavior even more. But here's something most people don't realize. Not everyone posting confidently online is a narcissist. Psychologists remind us that confidence and narcissism are not the same. Healthy people can share their wins, their faces, or their voices without manipulation. The difference lies in intent. Narcissists post to dominate and control perception, while healthy individuals post to connect or celebrate. The danger of mislabeling is that it dilutes the seriousness of real narcissistic abuse. If everyone online is called a narcissist, the term loses its weight. Survivors may struggle to have their experiences taken seriously. Psychologists emphasize that while social media reveals narcissistic traits, we must remember that true NPD is a clinical condition, not just vanity or selfishness. Still, social media has become a narcissist playground. It gives them instant access to validation, attention, and admiration without the effort of real intimacy. A single post can generate hundreds of likes, comments, and messages, feeding their ego endlessly. Psychologists explain that this digital supply can feel like a drug, keeping narcissists hooked and always seeking the next hit of attention. Algorithms intensify this cycle. A narcissist doesn't have to work hard to spread their image. The system does it for them. The more shocking, dramatic, or extreme their post, the more likely it is to go viral. This encourages narcissists to push boundaries further, creating exaggerated personas that dominate feeds. For viewers, this creates the illusion that narcissists are everywhere when in fact it's the algorithm amplifying them. This amplification effect can be dangerous. Psychologists warn that many people fall victim to narcissists online, mistaking their charm and curated images for authenticity. The digital stage hides red flags, making it easier for narcissists to manipulate, seduce, or exploit. For those seeking love, friendship, or guidance, the risk of encountering a narcissist online is higher than ever before. But let's not forget the positive side. Survivors are also using these platforms to reclaim power. The rise of videos, blogs, and communities exposing narcissistic behavior has brought education and healing to millions. Psychologists celebrate this shift, noting that awareness breaks the cycle of abuse. What once was hidden in silence is now spoken loudly, empowering those who once felt isolated. So why does narcissism feel everywhere? Because for the first time in history, both the narcissist and the survivor have equal access to the same stage. One post to control, the other post to expose. This battle of voices creates the impression of constant narcissism, when in truth it's a reflection of awareness, conflict, and the power of storytelling. The shocking truth is that narcissism hasn't suddenly multiplied. It has simply become visible. Social media, cultural language, and survivor communities have pulled back the curtain. Psychologists remind us that while narcissists may appear everywhere, what's actually spreading is knowledge. And knowledge, unlike narcissistic manipulation, leads to freedom, clarity, and change. Psychologists often say that social media doesn't invent narcissism. It rewards it. Think about it. The design of likes, followers, and shares mirrors the exact kind of attention narcissists crave. Each notification is like a spark to their ego. For regular users, this can feel enjoyable or motivating. For narcissists, it becomes an addiction, fueling the sense that they dominate the digital world. This reward system explains why narcissism appears more intense online. In real life, attention is limited. You can only get so much praise from family, friends, or coworkers. But online, the supply is endless. A single viral post can deliver more validation in one day than most people receive in a year. This imbalance exaggerates narcissistic behavior and makes it more visible than ever before. But here's the twist. Not only narcissists benefit from this system. Ordinary people can also get caught in the trap of chasing validation. Psychologists warn that when validation becomes the main goal, anyone can begin showing narcissistic traits. This doesn't mean they have NPD. It means the environment is shaping behavior. The internet blurs the difference, making narcissism feel universal. Another reason narcissism feels everywhere is the trend of self-diagnosis. Many people share TikToks or posts saying, "If your partner does this, they're a narcissist." While these posts can raise awareness, they often oversimplify. Psychologists caution that not every bad behavior equals narcissism, but repeated exposure to these clips convinces audiences that narcissism is exploding in society. The danger is that survivors may feel invalidated when their experience gets lumped into a trend. True narcissistic abuse is complex, devastating, and life-altering. It's not just about someone taking too many selfies. Psychologists stress the importance of distinguishing between narcissistic traits and full-blown personality disorder. This distinction matters. Otherwise, the real victims risk being drowned out by online noise. But despite these concerns, the spread of awareness has undeniable benefits. For decades, narcissistic abuse was hidden, misunderstood, or dismissed. Now, survivors can find others with similar stories within minutes. This connection provides validation and healing. So while narcissism feels overwhelming online, it also signals a cultural shift. Silence is no longer protecting abusers. It's also worth noting that narcissism takes different shapes online. Some narcissists flaunt wealth and beauty. Others posture as experts, leaders, or spiritual guides. Psychologists explain that these are all masks, roles designed to attract supply. The internet makes mask switching easy, allowing narcissists to reinvent themselves endlessly. This variety creates the impression of narcissists at every corner. Have you noticed how influencers often blur the line between inspiration and exploitation? While not all influencers are narcissists, the format naturally rewards those who crave attention. Narcissists are drawn to this space because it offers them control, admiration, and influence without accountability. This dynamic fuels the idea that narcissism is flooding digital culture. Psychologists also highlight that narcissism stands out more than humility. Quiet kindness rarely goes viral. Outrage, vanity, and manipulation do. This skews perception, because the behaviors most rewarded online are the ones associated with narcissism. As a result, audiences start believing narcissism dominates society, when in reality it's the algorithm amplifying the loudest and most toxic voices. The shocking truth is that the internet is both a stage and a mirror. It reflects who we are, but it also amplifies traits that grab attention. Narcissists thrive in this environment, but they are not the whole story. What feels like an epidemic is often just an echo chamber, repetition of the same patterns magnified 1,000 times. Recognizing this helps separate perception from reality. One of the reasons narcissism feels so overwhelming online is because the internet never sleeps. In the past, toxic behavior might be limited to certain times or places. Now you can encounter it 24/7. Psychologists explain that this constant exposure increases the perception of prevalence. It feels like narcissism is everywhere simply because it has no off switch in digital spaces. Survivors also contribute to this visibility by courageously sharing their experiences. Every story posted online is like shining a flashlight into the dark corners of abuse. The more stories we hear, the clearer the pattern becomes. This doesn't mean narcissists are multiplying. It means their behavior is harder to hide. Awareness makes the invisible visible, and that visibility can feel overwhelming. Another factor is the echo chamber effect. Algorithms show you more of what you engage with. If you watch one video about narcissists, your feed may fill with dozens more. Psychologists call this availability bias. The brain assumes something is common if we see it frequently. This digital repetition makes narcissism feel like the defining issue of modern life, even if it's partly an illusion. But illusions have consequences. Believing narcissism is everywhere can create fear and distrust. People may start labeling friends, coworkers, or partners too quickly. Psychologists warn that while awareness is important, Overgeneralization can harm relationships. Not every selfish act is narcissism. Recognizing nuance is vital to avoid turning education into paranoia. That said, the fear is not entirely misplaced. Narcissists are drawn to online spaces because they can craft identities, gain admiration, and hide flaws more easily. The internet provides masks they can change at will. Psychologists note that this flexibility makes them harder to identify, which fuels the impression that narcissists are multiplying in the digital era. At the same time, psychologists emphasize that the rise of awareness is a victory. Survivors no longer have to suffer in silence. The fact that narcissism feels everywhere is proof that stories are being shared and patterns recognized. This visibility protects future victims. What feels like an epidemic may actually be justice finally catching up to hidden abuse. Cultural shifts also play a role. In societies that value individualism and achievement, narcissistic traits can be mistaken for leadership or ambition. Online, this blurring is even more extreme. The charismatic leader, the influencer, the guru, all can be narcissists or simply confident individuals. The ambiguity creates confusion, reinforcing the idea that narcissism surrounds us. Psychologists remind us that true narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, affects a small percentage of the population. But narcissistic traits, like vanity, entitlement, or lack of empathy, exist on a spectrum. Online environments magnify these traits in everyone. This is why narcissism feels more common, even though the number of diagnosed narcissists hasn't skyrocketed. Another hidden truth is that calling out narcissism has become part of internet culture. Posts, memes, and viral videos expose toxic behavior, sometimes humorously, sometimes painfully. This cultural language gives people power, but it also makes narcissism a constant part of the conversation. The repetition embeds it into our perception, making it feel unavoidable. Ultimately, the shocking truth is that narcissism feels everywhere because awareness and amplification collide. Survivors are louder, algorithms are stronger, and narcissists themselves are more visible than ever. The combination creates a storm of perception, but beneath the noise, the real shift is not in numbers, it's in knowledge. And knowledge, psychologists say, is the first step toward freedom. The more we talk about narcissism online, the more patterns we begin to notice in our own lives. Psychologists explain that this awareness is empowering, but it can also be heavy. Constant exposure makes some feel surrounded, as though every interaction hides manipulation. Yet the truth is simpler. Awareness sharpens our vision, but not every shadow hides a narcissist. It's also important to acknowledge that narcissism isn't only about individuals, it's about systems, workplaces, political environments, and even family dynamics can reward narcissistic traits. Online, these patterns are magnified. Seeing them in multiple contexts at once can create the illusion of a global epidemic. Psychologists remind us that we're not seeing more narcissism, just more angles of the same behavior. Survivors who once blamed themselves now find communities validating their stories. This shared recognition creates a chorus of voices that feel impossible to ignore. Each story strengthens the collective awareness. Narcissism feels everywhere because silence has been broken. What was once hidden behind closed doors is now broadcast, and the truth cannot be unseen. The internet has also made narcissists less powerful in some ways. Their tactics are being exposed, their patterns documented. Survivors can learn red flags in advance. This transparency makes manipulation harder to sustain. Narcissists may adapt, but their secrets are shrinking. Psychologists emphasize that exposure is painful for them. Light is their enemy, and online awareness is the brightest light yet. Yet the paradox remains. The more we expose, the more present narcissism feels. This paradox can be exhausting, leaving some to wonder if healing is even possible. But psychologists assure us that knowledge is never the enemy. What matters is balance, learning to recognize patterns without letting them consume our sense of safety or joy. For many, the key is shifting focus. Instead of asking, "Why is narcissism everywhere?" The better question is, what do I do with this knowledge? Psychologists encourage survivors to use awareness as a tool, set boundaries, seek support, and choose relationships grounded in empathy. Awareness is not meant to trap us in fear, it's meant to free us. Another powerful truth is that not all online exposure to narcissism is negative. Many creators, psychologists, and survivors are building communities of healing. These spaces provide hope, education, and tools for recovery. Narcissism feels everywhere, yes, but so does resilience. The same platforms that expose toxic behavior also amplify strength, courage, and survival stories. So is narcissism really rising? Psychologists say the evidence doesn't support a dramatic increase in NPD cases. What has risen is visibility. Technology magnifies traits. Survivors share louder, and awareness spreads faster. The internet hasn't created a wave of narcissists. It has created a wave of recognition, and recognition is the first step toward change. The shocking truth is that narcissism feels everywhere online because the silence has ended. What once thrived in shadows is now being called out. Yes, the algorithms amplify the noise, but beneath it lies progress. Every story, every video, every discussion chips away at the power narcissists once held. That is not an epidemic. It is a cultural awakening. In conclusion, narcissism may feel like it's surrounding us, but the reality is more hopeful. We are not drowning in narcissists, we are finally seeing them clearly. Psychologists urge us to use this knowledge wisely. Don't live in fear, but live empowered. The internet has exposed the mask, and once you see behind it, you cannot be fooled again. That clarity is your freedom, and that freedom is the final truth. So the next time it feels like narcissism is everywhere online, remember, it's not that the world is suddenly filled with more narcissists, it's that we're finally seeing clearly. Awareness is power, and with that power, you can protect yourself, set boundaries, and choose peace. If this video gave you clarity, share it with someone who needs this truth today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join this community, where healing and freedom always come first.